Solvency II capital requirements are based on the one-year risk horizon. However, in terms of running your business, you might want to use and calculate metrics based on the ultimate year risk horizon, where here you're actually looking at the distribution of the aggregate reserves and the VaR of the aggregate till runoff. With the one-year risk horizon, you raise capital at the beginning of each year and can release capital to the capital providers at the end of the year, and depending on the losses, and then you raise capital again at the beginning of the second year, and so on. With the ultimate year risk horizon, you raise all your capital at inception, which would typically be the VaR of the aggregate, and then at the beginning of each year or the end of each year, you release capital to the capital providers, depending on how much you still need to retain capital. You need to retain capital for the subsequent calendar years. So let's now let VaR star 1 denote the VaR of the aggregate distribution from year 1 to runoff, but VaR star K is the VaR of the aggregate distribution from calendar year K to runoff, let's say calendar year N. So basically now you have the bells, the mean reserves, but on top of the mean reserves you got VaRs, but these VaRs are the VaRs from the year till runoff. So this will be VaR star 1, VaR star, say, let's call this VaR star 2007, VaR star 2008, which is the VaR up to the end of the runoff. So pictorially, conceptually, the ultimate year risk horizon is very much simpler than the one-year risk horizon. At the beginning of any year, the capital you need to have set the 99.5 percentile is the VaR of the aggregate distribution from year 2 to year N. If you're looking at the second year, Kth year, it's year K to year N. The market value margin you pay to the capital providers for holding that risk capital for 1 year is based on that. It's the spread multiplied by that amount, and of course you can discount it to inception. So the bells are the same as the bells, the sum of them. The MVMs are additive, and the SCO, in fact, the solvency capital requirement, which is not really based on the ultimate year risk horizon, but that's denoted by SCO in any case, is just the VaR of the aggregate. So the whole idea here is much simpler. Now, how much capital you would release back to the capital providers at the end of the year will depend on your losses so far and how much really you need to retain in your risk fund. Okay? All right. So now let's calculate these statistics and maybe even do a comparison to the one-year horizon. So the first thing we'll do is run the model maybe. Let's just run it twice and only calculate the ultimate year risk horizon metrics. Let's just do it twice. And calculate the ultimate year risk horizon metrics, assuming fungibility across the LRBs, and then assuming no fungibility. Let's just look at those two examples. And see if there's any difference there. Okay, so I'm going to do the simulation twice. But this time, let me look at the forecast summaries again. And it's a different button. So let's do it for run 1 of model good. And downward arrow, ultimate year risk horizon metrics, reserve. Let's use the same fixed seed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And let's redistribute surpluses across LRBs. That means each LRB is in the same portfolio. Okay, we only have one portfolio, and well, I guess there's no ring fencing of LRBs. Okay, and We'll also assume distributions going forward. Okay, let's do that. You might remember that for the 1-year risk horizon, the total capital was really around 100% of the undiscounted barrel. Well, now the total capital that you need at inception is actually 130%. So, the ultimate year risk horizon is much more onerous in terms of the SCR is much larger. I think we had 60, 63, 66 versus 180 million. Okay, let's do the other simulation now, where now we're going to assume no fungibility. So we want to redistribute surplus. So basically we have 6 portfolios. Each one contains just one LOB. And let's use the same seed. 5. Okay, let's do that. So let's look at the differences. Okay, on the right, what are the settings? LOBs is on, so there's redistribution. There's only one portfolio. On the left, each LOB is actually ring-fenced. There's no fungibility across LOBs. Let's look at it by summary. In terms of total capital at inception, it's 133% versus 130. Actually, these differences will be greater if we lower the percentile, because we're at the 99.5 percentile, which is pretty extreme. And again, LOB3 is the largest LOB. The other LOBs are smaller. So you don't, at that kind of percentile, if losses the aggregate loss are 99.5%, I guess, most losses. There's very little distribution of surplus. I mean, there's very little surplus that's coming from the small lines for the big line, for LOB3 and LOB1. And they are the main ones causing, if you like, large losses at the 99.5 percentile. So the SCR is 197. That's the VAR for the first calendar year. It's the same as the VAR for the first calendar year. It's 197 versus 180. The market value margin is higher, 126 million. So the risk margin or the market value margin is higher because you don't allow for fungibility. And I think the differences will be, what's the difference in these VARs? Well, let's see. 448 total, VAR 197 in 180. Okay, well that's the difference in the SCR and so on for subsequent calendar years. 183, 168. And of course we can compare this by actually looking at the tables. Yeah, so you lose some diversification credit if you make the LOBs non-fungible or you ring-fence each LOB. Let's just do it again and lower. Why don't we lower the percentiles? So I'm going to make the percentile 75%. Let's do that. 75%. Okay. Okay, so it's done. Let's just check the settings. So at 75th, now we'll do the other one at 75th. 75th percentile. Change that to 75%. And we don't distribute surplus across LOBs. Okay. So let's compare the statistics. Okay, let's just check the settings again. 75th percentile. and now fungibility, full fungibility, summary, summary. So we're looking now at 51 million SCR versus 33 million, big difference. Total capital is 97% versus 93%. What's the difference in market value margin? 17.9 million versus 6.72. 5 million. Okay, so you know there's major reduction in diversification credit by ring fencing each LRB, both in terms of MVM, cost of capital is more than doubled, and your SCR is increased by a large proportion. Now your total capital at inception is 97% of the undiscounted BEL, whereas here it's notice that if you basically book your undiscounted mean reserve. So in this example, even if you don't allow for fungibility across LRBs, the total capital at inception doesn't really exceed the undiscounted BEL, which is quite interesting. So there must be, we're using a 4% risk-free rate of return. So if we look at the discounted, undiscounted BEL, 609 million versus about 697 million. We've seen these numbers before. That difference of about just under 90 million accounts for the market value margins and the SCR. Even if you don't allow for fungibility. Okay, so just in summary, ICFAS Plus, the MPTF module, the one that allows you to design a composite model for multiple LRBs, allows you also to compute the S2 at 1-year risk horizon, ultimate year risk horizon with various degrees of fungibility, both across LRBs. You can set up portfolios that are ring-fenced, and also fungibility, if you like, along the calendar years going forward, or non-fungibility going forward. Okay, thanks for that.